Hey, man, don't be afraid of the double knot.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is Aware for May 8th, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns, with me sitting right over there. Not afraid of the double knot at all. Ashley Burns, how you doing, Asha?
Not too bad. Let's double it up.
That was Nick. Here you go.
Aw,
Just for you.
and a good morning to everyone, but me especially when I hear that.
Welcome to this episode, Ashley, of Morning Somewhere. Get into that in a second. That was Nick Saldana, who heard about me talking about how his "Don't be afraid of the double knot" is now in my head for the rest of my life because he said it to me once 20 years ago. Here's the actual message he sent me right here.
Hey, Bernie, it's Nick Saldana. I just went and checked, and every pair of shoes I own is actually tied in a double knot. So, with that said, and just as a gentle reminder after 20 years, hey, man, don't be afraid of the double knot.
I want to point out that all of his shoes are knotted even though he's not wearing them. What's going on in your life,
maybe
Nick?
it slips out of them and then he has to untie them before he puts them on. It is funny, the things that stick in your head, and you don't know which ones are going to stick. You know what sticks for me? And I'm always like, why that one thing? It's the way Meg Turney, a friend of ours, says idiot.
I mentioned that one time in an RTAA, and I see this is the kind of thing I worry about. Sometimes when you talk about someone else, you make an observation, and then other people then make the same observation. What is that called? Is that like?
But it starts like it puts it in people's head.
You get this is interesting based on stuff that we're going to be talking about today, or not talking about today. But there's also a thing too where I will watch things develop within a community of people or people who watch something. Like someone will go on a podcast and go, you know what, man? I decided today I haven't had pancakes in like 5 years, and I've always ate pancakes growing up. I was always kind of a pancake guy. I'm just a pancake guy. And then you'll see someone in the comments say, man, that Bill, I've always thought that guy was kind of a pancake guy, and I don't know why I've thought that. It's like, really, you don't know why you think that?
Really not sure?
He said
No
it,
idea?
like out loud, that exact same thing. But it's weird. It's like an inception thing where people don't sometimes realize where ideas will come from, or they'll half listen to a conversation and then they'll make the same point within the conversation. That used to happen on podcasts I was on where someone would be like doing notes while someone else is talking, and they'll literally like start talking about what the person was just saying as though it's a new conversation because it goes straight into their brain and then straight out.
Right. Like it somehow bypassed the conscious processing part and went like straight into the back and just became one of those niggling little thoughts in the back that then comes back out as an original thought.
But one of the things I always worried about was when we were all work together, like in front of a big audience, was I was worried about saying something that would then stick to somebody. You know what I mean? And it's like there's nothing they can do about it.
What's up, Pink Milk?
Pink Milk. What's up, Pink Milk? Yeah. I mean, I can even cite some really specific examples, but I don't want to highlight them. You know what I mean?
Right, because then you don't want to like bring them back into being. You want to manifest, Bernie. Sometimes you want to manifest. Sometimes you want to specifically not manifest.
Sometimes you'll hear a nickname. You weren't even in the room drinking Pink Milk. You didn't even get the Pink Milk, and you get called Pink Milk for the rest of your goddamn life. And you're like, I wasn't even in the room when that happened.
Here's the problem, Bernie, is you can try not to do that all you want, but you never know what's going to stick. You never know.
And I have to say, while we're talking about Nick,
you mean double knot?
Jason Saldana, who is famously known as being Nick's brother, he did a great job. I'm glad to see all the praise that he's getting for playing Tucker in Red vs. Blue Restoration. Yes, I'm going to keep talking about it. He's gotten a lot of praise, and it was great because if you've seen the film, it was a difficult part for him to play. Even if you've seen the trailer, you get a sense of it. And I went to him beforehand. I go, is this something you want to do? Like, do you want to try to do this? And he was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. It was completely different. And he did a great job with it. And I'm really proud of him. And I'm glad he's getting the praise he deserves for playing that role this season. It's great. So,
and of course, for being Nick's brother.
Red vs. Blue Restoration, available wherever double knots are sold. Anyway, what's going on in the news today, Ashley?
Well, as expected, a TikTok owner ByteDance is suing the U.S. government over the divest or ban bill that was signed by President Biden last month, which will force ByteDance to sell TikTok or shut it down in the U.S. They are saying that they would rather shut it down than sell it. They are now suing the
Really?
U.S., saying
That feels like a bluff.
potentially. I'll get into that.
I'd
but
rather shut down my multi-billion-dollar business than sell. I kind of get it
Right.
on a principle basis. Like what they're saying is, if I can read between the lines here, we really do believe that we're not doing anything egregious. We're running a social media network. And if we sell it to somebody else, these users that have trusted us and we've cultivated this entire user base, we're not just going to hand it to somebody else because they will do those things. you know?
Right. Yes. So this lawsuit is based on First Amendment rights, saying that it would be violate First Amendment rights. First of all, it would
You
be
mean
damaging.
TikTok suing the government
Yes.
is based on First Amendment?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
That it would hurt small business owners and creators. And here's the thing. that's
Everybody's thinking about the
interesting-
little guy these days.
Well,
yeah.
here's the thing that's interesting about it, though, is
The comment will make
that
more sense in about 5 minutes.
worked in Montana. So Montana did pass a bill to ban TikTok, and then that was struck down by a judge over the First Amendment.
Okay. Yeah.
And so
we talked about that one before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's precedent for it. But on the whole shut down, we'd rather shut down thing, I also think that might be a little bit TikTok leaning on its audience or trying to encourage them.
Court of public
to-
opinion?
Yep. To contact their government and basically try to put pressure on the government via their users to walk that back.
We did not touch on this in Follow Up Friday, but when we initially talked about this ruling against TikTok, I was openly conjecturing, that TikTok might be one of the fastest companies from formation to shutdown, where they speed running it. And people were very quick to point out online that Napster might hold that record. Napster was started in June of 1999 and was shut down in September of 2002.
Oh, that's quick.
That was quick. And just for reference there, TikTok was started in 2016 and is still going, September of 2016.
Now, does that include when they were Musical.ly?
I'm glad you asked that because I think we both had the same misconception that Musical.ly was the platform and it rebranded as TikTok.
Yeah, I was assuming it's kind of like how Justin TV sort of rebranded and became Twitch, didn't it?
Right. I wonder if anyone has the old Justin TV URL still from their old Twitch accounts. But yeah, Douyin, which is the Chinese version essentially of TikTok, was launched by ByteDance in September 2016, originally under the name A.me. Okay, so TikTok, which is the American version of Douyin, was launched in September 2017 by ByteDance. And then on the 9th of November 2017, ByteDance spent nearly $1 billion to purchase Musical.ly. So you could say they bought them to rebrand them. They started TikTok in order to acquire Musical.ly and then rebrand them. Musical.ly was like a lip syncing app that had a bunch of music clips that, was a lot of young people on there.
Which is one of those
lip-syncing.
things that continues to be a very popular thing on
Hugely
TikTok.
popular. It is kind of up for debate whether it Musical.ly did become TikTok or if TikTok was a movement that then acquired them, a business move to acquire them. And just for reference, if that was the case, that Musical.ly was the actual predecessor and origin of TikTok, it was originally released in August of 2014.
Okay.
It's weird. It's up for interpretation, I think, but it was acquired by TikTok, the company, which started in 2017.
It is interesting to me, too, that TikTok does have the sort of, there's Douyin and there's TikTok. And what that says to me is, from what I understand, Douyin has different algorithms. The Chinese government is more restrictive on social media and social media algorithms for Chinese users. And so it works very differently and in terms of what it recommends to its users in China. And interestingly enough, I saw there's just some headlines. Here's an article from The Guardian that the UK is going to require social media companies to tame their algorithms specifically for children. saying that what they're recommending is getting too wild and they need to basically rein it in. Here's this article from The Guardian. I'll link this in the link dump if you want to read the whole thing.
It's so hard to make things for kids, though, because we've talked before about how do you verify someone's identity online. And a lot of people have rejected very strongly my ideas that being anonymous on the internet can sometimes be a detriment. One of the cases where it is I'm an adult. I don't want to talk to kids, and I don't want kids talking to me online. I want to know if I'm talking to a child. You really don't have a way to verify that in any way whatsoever. Even taking credit cards these days, certainly mobile phone numbers, you can get around that thing. It's an important thing. It's an important thing to know when someone's a minor. And yes, I'm sure there are people out there, we all felt this way as teenagers or young adults, that we're older than our peers and we can handle these kinds of things. But these rules exist for a reason, and there should be a way to enforce them.
Yeah, not only for the kids' safety, but so that we don't have to deal with them.
We just want a break.
But this article says the Children's Safety Codes introduced as part of the Online Safety Act let Ofcom set new tight rules for internet companies and how they can interact with children. It calls on services to make their platforms child safe by default or implement robust age checks. And for sites with those age checks, Ofcom will require algorithmic curation to be tweaked to limit risks to younger users. So basically, suggested posts and For You pages will have to take into account if they're like basically what age they are. And so you're going to have to start getting like age checks probably on the content created. Like, is this appropriate for 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds? 18-year-olds, and so on.
It was really interesting because I just dealt with this and I could see the change over a long period of time in a moment because I recently paid off a 14-year-old joke for a website related to Red versus Blue. And I had to go through and I had to update a video that said, it's the Are You Making More Red versus Blue website. I updated the video from yes to no, but that was hosted on the Are You Making More Red versus Blue YouTube channel, which is just that one video. It'd be too hard to explain the joke. It's just a really old joke. Finally paid off after 14 years. The weird thing was when I uploaded the no video and went to go publish it, I had to then specify, it asked me directly the question, is this created for kids? And I know what they're asking there. Is it like kid friendly or kid safe? But asking me directly, is it created for kids? I'm like, well, no, it's not, but it's also not something that should be age gated. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's the wording on it seems almost like designed to confuse in a weird way. Or they're complying with the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit, if that makes sense.
I appreciate the way they put it, actually, because they're not asking you to make a judgment. Is this safe for kids? They're saying, did you make this for children? And it's like, no, I didn't make this for kids. You know what I mean? When it means, yeah, I'll probably get age gated and people will have to log in to see it. And when I went to go private the yes video, because I privated it, I didn't want to delete the comments that were on it, so I privated it. It made me update that one as well from 14 years ago and say, was this created for kids? And I had to say, no, it was not created for kids. But I just thought that was interesting. You know what I mean? And it certainly did not ask me when I uploaded that video 14 years ago if that was the case.
Sure. No, the times have changed, requirements change. And so the second you edit the video, you have to bring it into compliance, right?
Yeah. And I also, too, I want to talk about this, too, where I have 4 kids. I'm not one of those people that thinks everyone in society has to modify their behavior at all points in time in order to protect kids. I think we talked about really sad story, trigger word here for self-harm, about the woman who was caught touching herself on a beach, on a secluded part of the beach, and she was raked over the coals and ended up killing herself. She was raked over the coals for specifically kids might have seen her. You know what I mean?
They didn't,
but it was the idea that kids could see. As a parent, I'm like, yeah, she shouldn't be doing that stuff in public, right? But I don't think someone should be ostracized from society for doing something just on the off chance that my kids might have witnessed this thing. I've taken my kids on subways before, you know what I mean? It's like,
trust me, they've seen worse.
You know, and it's like, and I'm not saying kids should be exposed to that. Let me be clear. What I'm saying is we can't live our whole lives as though kids are fragile eggs and they might accidentally be exposed to something, or somebody might see a movie and it might show in a way. So we can't have scenes in movies like this because it might get to a kid at some point. You can't do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? You really can't. But we should have protections in place as best we can to protect kids, or allow parents to protect and raise their kids the way they want to.
Right. In the end, our kids are our job.
Yeah. At the end of the day, your
It's
kids
what
are
we
your own
signed up
job.
for.
And then at the same time, let's arm parents with the tools they need in order to protect their kids.
Yes, I would agree with that. But it is interesting. There's a very cynical part in the back of my mind with this whole TikTok thing that the one of the justifications that the U.S. has used for this bill is that they don't want user data going to China, right? But I feel like this is the wrong way to do it because what would happen, let's say TikTok sells it to a U.S. company, what's going to happen is that then China could just buy the user information. A lot of social media companies sell user data and they would just buy it instead. And it would still get there, but an American company would get a little bit of profit.
I wish I had a well-formed opinion of this, but it's so many different issues in my life coming together. I do feel like TikTok, the U.S. should be able to protect its own, especially its children, citizens, and what goes on in our country and how their information is shared and gathered and everything else. And then I'll watch a congressional hearing where they've got the Singaporean leader of TikTok, the CEO of TikTok, and you have this like congressman there grilling him over and over again about his ties to China. He's like, I'm from Singapore. I'm from Singapore. And I'm like, yeah, what are they doing hassling this guy? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I wish I had a better formed opinion of this. I don't use TikTok. It's not important to me in my life in any way whatsoever. And just in general, I lump it in with all of social media. And if social media is going to take a hit, I have problems arguing against that.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, I honestly think social media is one of those things that may end up taking care of itself in terms of use. I feel like no one uses it anymore. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I just know we're talking about social media. We're going to get to our next topic, and I'm just like gathering myself for that.
Okay.
So we had to stop this podcast a couple times today because we started talking about this at the top of the podcast, and we got into a discussion about this, and we're just going to put a pin in this. This is not, we have a lot of things to say about this, and it's just not right now is not the right time for us to talk about this, meaning we'll talk about this very soon, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense for us to discuss it now. What we're going to be talking about is the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef that is taking place online. Not specifically about that. We actually made a joke that we weren't allowed to talk about it, and it's great. We don't want to talk about it. That's actually a personal philosophy with us. One of the reasons why we don't get involved with like these conflicts and people going after each other in a public space is very specifically because of what happened last night. Last night at about 2 a.m. outside of Drake's mansion, the multimillionaire Drake, somebody drove by and shot the security guard outside of his gate. And he's been hospitalized. The police released a statement about it. Should I play the statement?
Yeah, play the statement.
Okay, this is from AP News. The police are investigating a shooting outside rapper Drake's mansion in Toronto that left a security guard seriously wounded. And here's the statement from the police about that.
Morning at about 2 a.m., police were called to a shooting at the residence behind me here. When officers arrived, they located a male who was suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. That male was taken to hospital in serious condition.
So he goes on to talk about that it was a vehicle that drove by, shot at him. They don't have a description of the vehicle. They don't have a description of the assailants. And they weren't going to speculate at this time on the motive of it.
Well,
and
that makes sense. They're the police, but I can make assumptions and speculate.
Well, we're even talking about TikTok suing the U.S. You don't want to say anything as the police that will give someone a reason in court to get out of a conviction, right?
Right.
So the police are very careful. Actually, people could learn a lot by listening to the way the police talk. You could learn a lot about the way to talk to the police when they talk to
true.
you, right? But we're being very measured here. Like I said, we had to stop this podcast a couple times. This is a situation that we take really seriously. There's a lot of people in the world, not the majority, but a lot, because there's so many people in the world. Even a small fraction is a lot of people. There's a lot of people who don't know where the lines are for the things that they're seeing on their screen. And we feel very strongly about a working man working an hourly wage. Yes, he's a security guard, but he's a security guard outside of Drake's mansion in Canada. I'm not really thinking that this is like a high risk position by any stretch of the imagination for people who can't draw the line as to what's going on their screen and bring it out in the real world. And now a guy is in the hospital who knows if he's got a wife, kids, family, and he gets shot over something that appears to be related to two multimillionaires going after each other online. This is the kind of thing that people don't think about when these things are taking place, but there's a lot of people who don't know the difference between something that is, in my opinion, clearly fucking manufactured for publicity and things that are real and actual threats to you.
And we take it very seriously because it hits very close to home for us on a personal level. You want to. It is shocking to see every time it happens, and yet this happens quite a lot. Is someone somewhere fails to make the distinction between the sort of entertainment aspect of everything that's happening and real life.
Can't differentiate between reality and fantasy, or think they're more involved with it than they are. And I can't help but feel for a guy who's got nothing to do with that in any way whatsoever, is now in the hospital, seriously wounded in the middle of the night. Well, just trying to do his job. Just simply trying to do his job.
Yeah. So we'll get there, but yeah, it's
explains a lot about the way we've approached, the way we talk about where we are and when we are, even, taking long breaks from social media. There's reasons for all of those things. But heart goes out to him. Hope the security guard recovers. Hope there's no long-term effects from this. And I definitely hope they find the people who came by and did this incredibly stupid thing.
Yes. But let's end on a more positive note. I just want to thank the people who recommended, based on a discussion we had yesterday, that we watch Gen V.
I want to congratulate you on getting us out of that.
Like,
yeah. Any way, shape, or form.
Let's end on a much better note. So Gen V is a spin-off of the Boys series that's coming back next month for season 4. It's based around a university for soups, and it has all the sensibilities of the Boys.
It was great.
We're through the first episode, and I'm all in. I was hesitant at first because you worry about this is going to be like CW University for superheroes, and it's not that at all. It's very much got the Boys sensibilities, and I'm really digging it so far. So thank you everyone who helped get me over the hump to watch it and not write it off.
Okay, well, that does it for us today. Today is May 8th, 2024. We're going to be back to talk to you tomorrow, right here, through your speaker, into your ears. We hope you'll be here as well.
Bye, everybody.